that rise of the sacred feminine, which is associated with all qualities of nurturing, with the very qualities of the mother, with the very qualities that supports and nourishes and upholds and preserves. These are the qualities that are now ought to become the dominating qualities in our society in order to progress. But we have to foster these qualities within ourselves. We have to develop these qualities within ourselves, encourage these qualities, so that there is this blend, so there is this unification of these torn apart polarities of I'm a man and this is a woman, I am this is my partner, or what have you, this is my colleague, this is my friend. This is the way the current civilization functions. However, we are much more complex creatures. Singers, artists, poets, they know how the line is blurred. The line is never clear. They know how that psyche is actually genderless. It has feminine qualities, but it's genderless. The psyche itself, the soul, that embodied soul that needs to awaken before anything can take place. So the self-realization, if it's viewed from the integral perspective, it's not and nothing to do with awakening and then abiding in that. First, we awaken to who we are, but not awaken to the ultimate reality. When we say first we awaken to who we are, we mean we first awaken to our soul. It's Atman awakens to itself. That's what really the whole essence of Kundalini awakening is all about. Kundalini and soul are the same. It's just a different terminology for the same thing. Atman and Kundalini are basically just two different terms for the same creation, for the same energy. And when we say energy, obviously, it's always the limitations of the language. It's that which gives birth to all energies. So it is the Atman, it is the soul that awakens to itself. It awakens to its primal, feminine quality. And this is very often, and I'm just going to give you an example based on my own, let's say, experiences and based on those experiences shared with me freely, that when a male body, when, let's say, the jiva who embodies that male physiology undergoes a profound level of awakening, there is this a shatter of a lot of preconceived ideas of who we really are. And on the level of the working of the endocrine system, there is this bridal period, very well known by true advanced sadhakas, by truly advanced seekers, when the sublimation of that energy actually conceals the need for another. It is that sublimation that takes place within, where that female and male, masculine and feminine merge in one single upstream. Then there is a possibility to know who we are on a greater level. Once we got to know who we are on that individual level, when we understand what is the essence of our individuality, this individuality is not character traits. This individuality is not just, oh, you know what, he or she is like this and like that. That's not individuality. Individuality is great possibility, great potentiality waiting to be discovered or waiting to be rediscovered. Another face of Shiva. It is absolute, which shows its unique face each time. Never repeats itself. It doesn't have two same faces. Identical twins don't have the same faces. You try to draw them, and you will know that there is uniqueness to each one of them. So this awakening, this process of awakening that we all speak about now, that everyone speaks about now, which is on everyone's lips, needs to be understood from the very integral perspective. Discarding your individuality is discarding that sacred feminine before we had the chance to really realize what it is to understand and savor our soul, so that that soul can freely offer itself to that which is rightfully belonged all at this time. It cannot be otherwise. It can, but it would be not in the manner where there is harmony. It will be in the manner when tumbling around in some kind of recessed stratosphere of other realms, in between somewhere, not knowing what it is and thinking, okay, that's all there is. Not knowing what it is, very often people consider, well, that's what it is, not knowing what it is. And everyone keeps talking about not knowing. When in fact, when you are actually merged with that which is knowledge itself and knowing itself, there is absolutely no way you can say that not knowing. Knowing arises out of you. Knowledge arises out of you. How can there be not knowing? It's a very different perspective. Knowing here, not in terms of knowing this on that. It's not about putting dots on E. It's not 2 + 2, 4. That's not kind of knowledge. The knowledge here we're speaking about, it's the knowledge of the very hidden laws, the very, very essence encapsulated in that field of all potentialities where it arises and being entertained through the power of its own awareness. And it can be given life, it can be actualized or discarded. But sacred feminine, it's that what carries that spiritual progress. It's that which carries that spiritual process. It is that which awashes us in the waters of renewal, so that bathe through this water, so we can be baptized into the being of light. The essence of spirituality is that, is being baptized by light itself, by Christ consciousness. So this sacred feminine, this whole idea of the serpent has to be understood and culturally readjusted, because there is deep fear of the sacred feminine, which is another very important topic or theme that I would like to impress upon in this sharing, is that we are afraid of that energy, tremendously afraid. The whole culture, the masculine culture, the militant culture, is built and created precisely because of the fear of utter freedom of that energy, of the way that energy expresses itself, because you cannot control that energy the way you can control anything else. It's that Dionysian energy. We prefer to stick with that Apollonian, like Nietzsche separated the Apollonian and Dionysian in The Birth of the Greek Tragedy, the first work that he wrote and dedicated to Richard Wagner. And that caused the actual fallout between those two, because Richard Wagner could not accept that. Richard Wagner was a typical Apollonian, he was all for structure. He was all for that masculine structure, for that very intellectual, cerebral approach to creative, and cathartic experiences. But Nietzsche came and said, no, actually 2,500 years ago there was already a fault, there was a crack in the Western civilization, because we've taken the root of that which is all what we consider to be logical, mathematical, structural, and discarded that which is alive with potentiality, because the Dionysius riding from India back to Greece on the panther, it's a scary image. So the Bacchanal has a very, very bad reputation. And obviously then all the great religions only dressed it in the way they found appropriate to keep the masses under tremendous control and separation, greater to a degree separation, because no religion really spoke of unity. Religion always tried to control the masses through this separation between God and soul, between sacred and profane, between good and bad, divine and evil. So the dichotomy, that polarity, is ingrained, deeply ingrained, and the fear of that sacred feminine was there, literally sucked with the milk of the mother. And this is what we are set to unlearn. And this is what we're set to unwind and dismantle. Because this civilization, this newly birthing culture, ought to be based and built upon different principles. What are these principles? I don't know. We will find out collectively, deep within the heart of each and every one of us, and how that will be reflected through the sum total of these hearts when that light reaches the tipping point, when it simply opens that vistas within the collective, deep within the consciousness. There is enough light to see. Then the spark of that, of how the new culture has to be formed, will come naturally. It's not going to be designed in the architect's table. No, that's Apollonial approach. That's that outlived approach that we talk about. It's not designing in the table. Because there are many spiritual teachers who are sitting down now and designing, making these models and what have you. But nature functions in the unique way, in a much, much more complex and subtle way. That's how consciousness functions. Something arises from the field of all potentialities, and if it has value, and if there is enough awareness, then that would be upheld and carried, and it will become a universe before you can have the chance to blink your eye. This is what I wanted to address today. So woman, that mystery, woman is that suffix before man, is that womb, that what we are afraid that which gives birth to the universe itself. We're afraid of that utter feminine qualities, the feminine qualities of acceptance, of surrender. That's what we're afraid. That's why we still prefer the very vertical, erected principles of non-duality, because it's the same patriarchal system. Only this exists, deny the rest. Only that, Brahman, deny the rest. Are you following me? Can you see the pattern repeats itself? Perhaps this would be enough, because I don't want to tire you with this. This is just to share something that perhaps you can reflect upon and feel how that sits with you.